You know, one of the things that I treasure most about being a Unitarian Universalist is that I am part of a religious tradition whose values and whose teachings are applicable, meaningful in my everyday life. Our faith tells us that wisdom, direction, and truth are not confined to ancient stories, specific scriptures, or sanctified rituals. Inspiration is potentially available to us in any story, any writing, any experience, if we are open to it. There's truth to be found in every story, every writing, every experience, if we engage with it on a deeper level. This is why, here at All Peoples, you will hear me quote from everything from the Gospel of Luke to Lady Gaga, from Carl Sagan to Margaret Fuller to Michelle Obama. In seeking truth in this way, we affirm that the human experience, in all of its diverse glory, always has something to say to us. Now, recently, I have been trying my best to be especially mindful about how much news I am consuming. With so many tragic and harmful things happening, it is important to stay informed. But watching hours and hours of CNN or MSNBC is perhaps not so good for the spirit. So I often try to balance things out by reading a book or watching a movie or a TV show that is a little lighthearted, a little less serious. And as a faithful Unitarian Universalist, I am discovering some inspiration where I least expect it. Several weeks ago, I was surfing through Netflix, and I came across a 2017 science fiction film called The Space Between Us. It is the story of a young boy who is born on Mars at a NASA space station there. And what happens is he decides he wants to go back to Earth. So he stows away on a ship. He's looking for his birth family. Now, near the beginning of the movie, as the very first group of Mars astronauts prepare to go on a journey at that point, which is into the unknown, a reporter asks the lead astronaut if she is afraid of undertaking such a dangerous mission. And she responds by saying, "It would be foolish not to be afraid. Courage is, after all, fear that has said its prayers." Now, that movie went on with lots of other really interesting and some kind of melodramatic and emotional plot twists. But I found that astronaut's words had gotten stuck in my brain. Courage is fear that has said its prayers. What does that mean? I started wondering to myself, when do I need courage? Why am I so afraid? What does it mean as a Unitarian Universalist to say my prayers? After a little investigation, I found that this insightful phrase is not original to that film at all. Over the years, it has been used in many different formats and has been attributed to everyone from World War I General John Pershing to silent movie actress Dorothy Bernard. Some have claimed that it was said by theologian Karl Barth, and others say Maya Angelou was the source. It's the title of a beautiful essay by one of my favorite writers, a woman named Anne Lamott. The earliest use of the phrase that I could find was from a short poem from 1921 by American writer Carla Wilson Baker. Baker's poem goes like this: "Courage is armor a blind man wears, the calloused scar of outlived despairs. Courage is fear that has said its prayers." You know, it seems to me that we are all taught to try to approach life with confidence whenever we are able, to work hard, to study hard, to do good with the assurance that this will bring us comfort, care, and happiness. Now, confidence is not the same thing as courage. Confidence relies on a sense of control, the ability to avoid suffering, to create the best outcomes for ourselves and for others. We are also told that we need to try to be brave. We admire the bravery in others, the bravery of first responders, ICU nurses, firefighters, civil rights activists. Just this past week, we celebrated Veterans Day, a holiday honoring those brave souls who have served in our military. Bravery is the ability to confront danger without feeling fear. Courage is not the same thing as bravery. Real courage does not involve pretending that we're not afraid or not feeling fear at all. Courage is the capability to move through what is happening despite our fear, facing the true dangers and the painful consequences of our reality and not letting them stop us. It is being scared, but not being defeated. Several years ago, I was talking with a friend, and he shared with me a major event that had changed his life. And this was something that he didn't share with just about anybody. This friend of mine had moved here to Louisville, and he found that he needed a roommate to share the cost of rent for an apartment down in old Louisville. So he posted something online looking for a roommate. The roommate that he ended up with happened to be transgender. And getting to know this person was the very first time that my friend had ever met anyone who identified as fluid on the gender spectrum. Now, my friend had also gotten a contract job at a manufacturing facility here in town. But he found that he was not always comfortable with some of the people that he worked with. His coworkers and his boss were constantly making offensive jokes, saying terrible things about gay people and women and trans folks. My friend is not gay or transgender, and he doesn't think of himself as some social justice advocate. But because of his roommate and their friendship, because of his friendship with me, these repeatedly hateful and inappropriate jokes and comments on the job just really got under his skin, and they began to really upset him. Finally, one day, he told me that he could just not take it anymore. And he spoke up, telling his coworkers and his boss that they needed to stop, pointing out to them that they were being homophobic and sexist and transphobic. Now, a month later, my friend's contract was not renewed, with no reason given, although he was pretty sure he knew the reason. And my friend found himself out of work for quite a while. He told me that in that moment, right before he spoke up that day, he was scared to death. He fully knew the consequences, what they might be. His heart was pounding, but he said, I just had to do it anyway. Even though I was afraid, it was just the right thing to do. Carla Wilson Baker wrote that courage is fear that has said its prayers. What I think that Baker meant was that to be able to embrace our fear and let it become courage, we might need to spend some time in prayerful reflection or meditation, calling on God or the Buddha or Mother Earth or maybe Michelle Obama to be with us, finding ways to connect deeply with the love and the spirit of our faith, knowing in some immediate way that the forces of life are there to support us. The goodness of our humanity is alive in our hearts. We are not stepping into our challenges completely alone. That is the only way to overcome our fear, our adversity to risk and bad outcomes. In situations when doing the right thing may very well result in discomfort or worse. Now, I would not call I would call my friend's actions courageous. I really would, but I don't think he would say that about himself. Most of us don't label ourselves as being courageous. We point to those monumental actions of others when we use such a term. Yet into all of our lives come days when we need some courage. Whether we are encountering a major illness, a great injustice, or just asked to do something generous, something kind and decent in the moment. And understanding that fear is an integral ingredient of courage, that being afraid is a signal that tells us something, that says, hey, pay attention. This is really important. Recognizing that is vital if we are to rise to the occasion. This has been a difficult week for some among us. The first real chill of winter arrived here in Louisville, and the nights continue to get longer. The deal made to reopen our federal government may have its immediate benefits, but it very well may prove to have dire consequences down the line. The attacks on our Constitution and on our fundamental rights as citizens just keep coming. The harassment of our immigrant neighbors and friends, and the challenges to our belief in our power to end all this madness continue unabated. Yet we persevere. We keep going. And hopefully amidst it all, our faith, our sense of community, our belief in one another and in the blessed web of life remains with us, to give us perspective in our fear, to calm our spirits, and to hold us all together. Rosemary Bray McNatt, the former president of our UU seminary, the Star King School for the Ministry, once wrote this: "We do the essential work of liberation when we remember that as Unitarian Universalist, faith is not a place to hide. It is not the place to get away from the world. It is not a place where we get to pretend that the lives we live in our particular circumstances are not terribly complex, are not often confusing, and sometimes depressing. Faith is the place where we stand with one another, where we look the world in the eye, where we attempt to see clearly and gather strength so that we may face what we see with both joy and with courage. So may it be with us."